Have you ever really stopped to think about your food? Not just what you're eating, but where it all comes from? We're going to dive into this huge, complex, and honestly, super important system that feeds, well, all of us. Every single day.
Seriously, think about your dinner last night. Maybe some chicken, some rice, a salad. Seems pretty straightforward, right? But behind that simple plate, man, there's a whole world of farms, fields, and fisheries. So where does the story actually start? Let's dig in.
Okay, so before we get too deep, we need to get on the same page. What are we even talking about when we say food production? Because it's way more than just planting a seed. It's the system that keeps our whole world running. Let's get a clear definition. So at its most basic level, it's pretty simple. We grow plants and we raise animals. Easy enough. But the ripple effect is enormous. And it's not just about what we eat. I mean, the cotton t-shirt you're wearing, that's part of it. The stuff in some cosmetics that comes from wool, yep, that's part of this system too. It's everywhere. All right, let's start from the ground up. Literally, let's talk about plants. When we think about growing stuff, it basically falls into two big buckets. You've got your massive scale agriculture, and then the more specialized world of horticulture. You know, farming is a game of strategy. First, you have to decide why you're growing something. Is it a food crop, like rice, that people are going to eat? Or is it a cash crop, like cotton, that you're going to sell? And then, just as important, is the question of when to plant. And that's all up to Mother Nature.
And yeah, that timing is everything. It really just comes down to water and weather. You've got your kharif crops, like rice, that absolutely love the heavy monsoon rains in the summer. Then you have rabi crops, like wheat, which do much better in the cooler, drier winter. This back and forth, this seasonal dance, basically runs the show for farming in huge parts of the world. So we've talked about the big staple grains, but what about all the other stuff? That's where horticulture comes in. This is the art and science of growing all the fruits, veggies, and flowers that make our food and our world so much more interesting. Think juicy mangoes, bright red tomatoes, even roses. And for a lot of farmers, this is where the real money's at.
Okay, so that's the plant side of things. Let's switch gears and talk about the other half of the equation, animals. We're talking about animal husbandry. And this is the whole shebang, the science of raising animals for, you guessed it, meat and milk, but also for a ton of other stuff you might not think of, like honey, wool, and yeah, even silk.
And you'd be surprised how wide-ranging this is. It's not just about cows in a field. You've got sericulture, which is how we get silk, apiculture, which is beekeeping for honey, and hey, bonus, those bees pollinate our crops. Then there's pisciculture, basically fish farming, which is a huge, huge source of food for billions of people.
Let's zoom in on poultry for a second. There's a really simple split here. You have broilers, which are chickens raised for meat, and then you have layers, which, as the name suggests, are raised to lay eggs. See? Same animal, two totally different jobs.
And it's kind of the same deal with bigger livestock. You've got your milk animals, think cows and buffaloes, that give us milk. And then you have draught animals, like oxen. These guys were the original tractors, the muscle of the farm, pulling plows and hauling stuff around. So, the way we do all this today, it didn't just happen. It's the result of some huge, world-changing moments. I'm talking about actual revolutions in food that completely flipped the script on how we feed ourselves.
Let's go back to the middle of the 20th century. You've got countries all over the world, India being a prime example, with populations that are just exploding, and they're facing this massive problem. How do we feed all these people? How do we stop relying on other countries for food? The traditional ways just weren't cutting it anymore. Something had to change, and fast.
The answer, when it came, was like a 3-step recipe for success. Step 1, new types of seeds, high-yielding variety seeds that could grow way more food on the same amount of land. Step 2, add fertilizers to give those super seeds the nutrients they needed. And step 3, bring in modern irrigation so you're not just depending on the rain. And the result? Whoa. A massive boom in wheat and rice that, no exaggeration, saved millions and millions of people from starvation. And then a similar thing happened with milk. They called it the White Revolution. This was all about logistics. It was about creating a system to collect milk from millions of different small farmers, updating how it was processed and shipped, and then giving those farmers more power by forming cooperatives. And it worked. India went from not having enough milk to becoming the biggest milk producer on the planet. Just incredible. Okay, so these revolutions were amazing, right? But they weren't perfect. They came with a cost, especially for the environment. And that's led us to the big question we're facing today. How do we keep feeding everyone, but do it in a way that's actually sustainable for the future? One of the biggest answers people are looking at is organic farming. And the idea behind it is pretty simple, really. It's about working with nature, not against it. So instead of using a bunch of chemical fertilizers and pesticides that can mess up the soil over time, the focus is on building healthy soil naturally. The thinking is, healthier soil means healthier food and a healthier planet. So what does that actually look like on a farm? Well, instead of chemical fertilizers, you're using things like compost. To deal with pests, use natural biopesticides, and you use clever techniques like rotating your crops, which keeps the soil from getting worn out. It's all about creating a farm that can kind of take care of itself.
And this isn't just a small-time thing. It's a huge global focus. I mean, the United Nations has a specific goal, SDG 12, that's all about producing and consuming things more responsibly. That means pushing for sustainable farming and, just as important, cutting down on all the food we waste. I love this quote because it just nails it. It really gets to the heart of what we're talking about now. Producing food isn't just farming. It's this massive scientific and ethical challenge. How do we feed everybody on Earth right now without wrecking the planet for our kids and grandkids? You know, when you look back, our food system has always been changing. From the very first farmers to those huge revolutions we talked about. And now we're facing brand new challenges, right? Climate change, a global population that's still growing. It's clear the system has to change again. So that leaves us with a pretty big question. What's the next revolution going to be? Thanks for joining me on this explainer.